the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network presents Vatican Insider with Joan Lewis. Each week, Joan brings you news from inside the Vatican and the Church around the world, as well as interviews and answers to your questions. Now, here's the host of Vatican Insider, Joan Lewis.
Welcome to a new edition of Vatican Insider. News headlines in a minute, but first, an invitation to stay tuned to the interview segment when Kathleeen Jagger, president of Newman University in Wichita, Kansas, returns to VI in part 2 of our conversation as we further explore Newman University today. In particular, we talk about the mission of education as seen by Cardinal John Henry Newman, proclaimed last November 1st as Doctor of the Church and co-patron with St. Thomas Aquinas of the Church's education mission. Part 2 of that conversation starts after the news. And now some of the news highlights of the past week. Sunday, January 18th. At the Angelus, Pope Leo highlighted the grave humanitarian crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, where violence has forced many to flee. And he also expressed solidarity with those affected by extreme weather in southern Africa. The Pope also marked the start of the annual Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, recalling its origins 100 years ago under his namesake predecessor, Leo XIII. Monday, January 19th. On the second day of the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, Pope Leo met with a Finnish ecumenical delegation, and he praised a long-standing cooperation between Lutheran Orthodox and Catholic communities in Finland. Reflecting on the theme for the Week of Prayer, there is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to the one hope of your calling. Leo observed that many people today are, quote, tempted by a sense of hopelessness. As Christians, he said, we have the essential mission as Christian messengers of hope to bring the Lord's light into the darkest corners of our world. Although the Jubilee of Hope has concluded, our Christian hope knows no end and no limit. Also Monday, Leo XIV welcomed directors and police officers of Italy's Inspectorate for Public Safety for Vatican City, and he thanked them for their work to ensure the safety of the faithful and pilgrims around Vatican City, especially during such an intense year which saw the Jubilee, the funeral of Pope Francis, and a conclave. Again Monday, Pope Leo XIV, in a meeting with the leaders of the group, thanked the Neo-Catechumenal Way for their witness and work in spreading the gospel around the world, and he encouraged them to promote unity and avoid rigidity and moralism. Strive forward in joy and humility without closing yourselves off, as builders and witnesses of communion. The Church accompanies you, supports you, and is grateful for what you do. In a telegram Monday to those affected by a train collision in southern Spain on Sunday, which caused at least 40 deaths and dozens of injuries, Pope Leo offered his expressions of comfort, deep concern, and wishes for the speedy recovery of the injured, saying he was deeply saddened to learn of the accident. He offered prayers for the victims and his heartfelt condolences to the family. In yet another appointment Monday, Pope Leo XIV received President Petr Pavel of the Czech Republic. A press office statement highlighted the good diplomatic relations between the Holy See and the Czech Republic and noted that discussions at the Secretariat of State focused on issues of common interest and on several socio-political matters of a regional and international nature, with particular attention to ongoing conflicts, underscoring the importance of an urgent commitment to peace and to the recovery of the principles and values that underpin international coexistence. Pope Leo spent Monday night and Tuesday at Castel Gandolfo, returning to Rome Tuesday evening. However, on Tuesday, January 20th, the Vatican released Leo's message for the 34th World Day of the Sick, celebrated annually on the February 11th Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes. In this message, he encouraged a renewed reflection on the figure of the Good Samaritan. The 2026 World Day will be celebrated in Chiclayo, Peru, where, of course, the Pope was once a bishop. He invited the faithful to consider the Samaritan's compassion and said how we too can offer love by bearing the pain of others. This image, he stressed, is always relevant and essential for rediscovering the beauty of charity and the social dimension of compassion, and it helps further direct our attention towards the needy and towards all those who suffer, especially the sick. Wednesday, January 21st. During his weekly general audience, Leo XIV continued his catechesis on the dogmatic Constitution Dei Verbum on divine revelation. In Scripture, said the Pope, we have seen that God reveals himself in a dialogue of covenant in which he addresses us as friends. It is therefore a relational knowledge which not only communicates ideas but also shares a history and calls for communion in reciprocity. Thanks to Jesus, said Leo, Christians know God the Father and entrust themselves to him with confidence. God has communicated himself to us, and at the same time, he has manifested to us our true identity as his children, created in the image of the Word. Before the general audience Wednesday, Pope Leo was presented with 2 baby lambs on the occasion of the memorial of St. Agnes of Rome, Virgin and Martyr. In a special liturgy, he blessed the lambs whose wool will be used to make the palliums given to new metropolitan archbishops on the June 29th feast of Saints Peter and Paul, apostles and patrons of Rome. This is the first time since 2021 that a pope has been presented with 2 baby lambs. Also Wednesday, Pope Leo XIV sent a message to the French Catholic Media Federation for the 29th edition of the Days of St. Francis de Sales, patron of Catholic journalists, and this is taking place in Lourdes. In a world marked by divisions and by the emergence of artificial intelligence, Leo urged those who work in Catholic media and communications to give space to the stories of people who are suffering and who are working for peace. I encourage you to be sowers of good words, amplifiers of voices that courageously seek reconciliation by disarming hearts of hatred and fanaticism. Thursday, January 22nd. Pope Leo sent a message to participants in the 2026 March for Life in Washington, D.C., encouraging young people to continue striving to ensure that life is respected in all of its stages. The march is Friday, January 23rd. He assured all of his spiritual closeness and added his heartfelt appreciation for this, quote, eloquent public witness to affirm that the protection of the right to life constitutes the indispensable foundation of every other human right. Friday, January 23rd. In a message to the 2026 European Conference, organized by the Centesimus Annus Pro Pontifice Foundation in Luxembourg, Leo XIV upheld the Church's social teaching as showing societies a path to authentic respect and peaceful coexistence. Also Friday, Pope Leo XIV received their Royal Highnesses Grand Duke Guillaume V and Grand Duchess Stephanie of Luxembourg. Well, those are the news highlights of the past week, but stay here now for my conversation with Kathleeen Jagger, president of Newman University in Kansas.
Proclaiming the faith, changing lives.
The year is 2016. EWTN News inaugurates the Vatican Bureau in Rome, where St. Peter's Basilica sets the backdrop. The occasion sparked reflection on Mother Angelica's legacy and the media network's mission to serve the gospel.
To learn more about Mother Angelica's life and the history of EWTN, visit EWTN.com/Mother Angelica.
This is a Messy Family Minute with Mike and Alicia Hernan. We talk a lot about the importance of family culture, but what is it? Family culture is an unwritten set of expectations, beliefs, and values. It's a way of life that confers identity, belonging, and mission on its members. You have a family culture in your home already, whether you realize it or not. And as parents and even grandparents, we have to ask, what are the unspoken messages we are communicating to our children?
When a family culture is dysfunctional, children learn lessons they take into adulthood which are hard to unlearn. But in strong, healthy families, the culture exponentially magnifies parenting and keeps kids doing the right thing. As they say in the business world, culture beats strategy every time. A family's culture is a powerful force that sends messages more clearly than words alone. It is essential that you and your spouse are intentional and thoughtful about the culture you are stewarding within your home.
For more free resources on building your family culture, visit us at messifamilyminute.org.
Welcome back to Vatican Insider. Here's Joan Lewis.
Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Kathleeen Jagger, the president of Newman University in Kansas. Now, she was in Rome for the Jubilee of Education, and also the same day, November 1st, when St. John Henry Newman was named Doctor of the Church, and with Thomas Aquinas, co-patron of the Church's educational mission. Now, Kathleeen and I, of course, talk about Newman University, its purpose and mission, and we also look at Newman's ideas, his well-known ideas on education, and that's where we start part 2 of our conversation.
John Henry Newman, he did say that perfection of intellect and enlargement of the mind, as you said, illumination of the mind is the real aim of a university. So he wanted to really not only provide this liberal, broad education, but he wanted to cultivate in people the habits of mind that led to continuing education. And he talked about how the object of liberal education in its breadth was really intellectual excellence. And interestingly enough, one of our core values is academic excellence at Newman, along with our Catholic identity, culture of service, and a global perspective.
Absolutely. Another thing Newman believed in, he believed that the personal relationships between teachers and students is vital for dynamic learning and the development of character. And he said, an academical system without the personal influence of teachers upon pupils is an Arctic winter.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that quote.
That is a wonderful quote, but there has to be this interrelationship. I mean, at a certain point, if you don't have it, your students themselves are going to look for something.
Right.
You know, and just the fact they come up to you as a teacher, you know, or obviously in your case as a leader, they're going to have questions and count on you. There has to be that interpersonal. Or even if someone says to a teacher, hey, what brought you to study math? What brought you to become an astronomer?
Yes.
What brought you to study philosophy or theology? You're not going to get that answer from AI folks. So
right. Or
listen to what we have to say today.
Even from a book, oftentimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you have to be in relationship with people to understand their individual stories.
And I love the fact that he championed liberal education as an end in itself, because this develops the mind's capacity to analyze, to reason, and to engage with diverse ideas. A cultivated intellect.
Yes.
Yes.
We have on our campus a bronze statue of John Henry Newman. It's one of a life size. It's only one of 3 in the world, the only one in the U.S. And we have a quote from him in front of that statue. Says, a cultivated intellect, because it is good in itself, brings with it a power and a grace to every work and occupation which it undertakes. So it's not merely a capability to do something, but conveying a power of persuasion, a power of expressing, a power of urging people to a higher level of humanity, right?
Oh, absolutely.
In every kind of occupation.
And with the kind of education that he envisioned, when you develop well-rounded individuals, they can contribute meaningfully to society. And again, that was, I don't remember the precise words as we're sitting here, but Pope Leo said that yesterday. Something about education being one of the most beautiful things in life because of its ability to transform society.
Right.
So any students that are listening, if your parents who have students or your students who are listening to this is why you are in school. And I would say, develop, if you have a passion for one field, fine. And one interest, it can be math, it can be art, it can be, but develop a passion. Find joy in what you are learning. Look down the road and see how what you are learning will become available. You can become available to transform society.
And look for connections to other disciplines that you might never have imagined would develop. So keeping an open mind about how different disciplines interface.
Well, I just love the discipline that Newman had himself to get to the point where he realized, as an Anglican, we haven't mentioned that yet, but as an Anglican, a convert to Catholicism, he had done his research, he kept searching, he kept learning, and then realized one day with everything that was in front of him, especially as an Anglican minister, that the full truth of the Church of Christ was in the Catholic Church. So made that decision at a time, but even today this can happen to some families, at a time when people don't understand it. You're a member of a Protestant family for several generations, but like Newman, you make this discovery and all of a sudden find that there's some family members who won't speak to you. So it can be a hugely difficult decision to make on earth, but you look at what our final home is supposed to be, and you're on the right road.
Every year since I've been, I think, at Newman, we have students come into the church, because not all our students are Catholic. About half of them maybe, and we want to be open to people of all faiths and different geographies, right? Diversity is defined in so many ways. But it's been interesting. One of the students who was I met and got to know well in my first or second year, he graduated. He went to teach at a local high school, Catholic high school, and 2 years later he's back discerning priesthood.
Oh, how beautiful.
And he said that's all because of his experience at Newman.
I taught French for many years, so I understand the role of a teacher, but also I learned in my first few weeks of teaching, the French would be important. I was hired to teach French, but I learned very quickly, this was in a Catholic girls' school, that it was going to be who I was. It was an order of nuns at the school, but there were only 3 or 4 of us as lay teachers. It was how I comported myself. So it's your influence as a person. I don't even care if 10 years after graduation they forgot all their French. If 10 years after graduation they're a good, caring person. One student came up to me after a reunion that came about because of a television appearance I had. 2 students got in touch with me, and they were in Rome on a small pilgrimage. We must have spent 70 hours over meals catching up on things. And they organized, a month later, I was going to be in Washington, and they organized a reunion. There were like 30 other girls from the years that I had taught there. And every one of them got up with a memory, a fun, wonderful, moving story. One gal came up to me after dinner with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Miss Lewis, I've waited 50 years to say thank you." And I said, "Oh, my word, honey, what for?" She said, "You taught us to follow our dreams." She said, "For 50 years I have followed and realized all my dreams because I believed in you."
And that is the true opportunity that every teacher has, from elementary all the way through the university.
Yes.
To demonstrate the value of every single human being.
Exactly.
By encouraging everyone to be their best self.
Exactly.
That is really, truly the calling of a teacher.
And I certainly think that's one of the things that's highlighted in Catholic education. I spent some time a few years ago in Iraq, and obviously a Muslim majority, but I visited a lot of schools run by religious orders. And the amazing thing was the majority of the students were not Christian, they were Muslim. Why did the Muslim people, this is what they told me, they sent their kids to these schools because A, they knew they were going to get a wonderful education, and B, they knew they were going to get values. Mm-hmm. Now they couldn't, in these schools, they couldn't teach the Catholic faith. If a Muslim wanted to sit in, they could, but they couldn't teach it, but values, you look at Catholic education, values, absolutely, and a good education. And this is another field I got into in researching, Newman, education, doctor of the church, all these topics. Right. The Catholic Church is the largest non-governmental provider of higher education in the world. Yes. So their Congregation for Catholic Education here in Rome says a total of 1,300 and 58 Catholic universities and higher educational institutions exist. And then this is interesting, the USCCB, our Conference of Catholic Bishops, they count the number as over 1,800. In the United States alone, there are 244 Catholic higher education degree granting institutions, and among those, we probably learned this with Pope Francis, the Jesuits operate the highest number of universities among Catholic religious orders, with 114 institutions globally. And then there's this, and it affects all of us in this room. A Catholic school is defined by canon law as, quote, under control of the competent ecclesiastical authority or of a public ecclesiastical juridical person, or one which is a written document acknowledged as Catholic by the ecclesiastical authority.
Right.
And, you have to look back at John Paul's Ex Corde Ecclesiae, and I've always loved that document. But he did set up a requirement for the mandatum at CAP. So for those who are teaching theology, to they have to sign. He's asking the university, the Catholic university, if you have a theology teacher, they have to sign this mandatum, which merely says they are going to teach the true Catholic faith of the Church. They're not going to have their own agenda or have their own interpretation of, the Seventh Commandment or something like that. Right. So that was a powerful moment for Catholic educators to know the Holy Fathers behind them on this.
And in Ex Corde, the complementarity of faith and reason in Catholic higher ed is really strongly emphasized, and that does go back to some of the things that John Henry Newman wrote about. Ex Corde
Ecclesiae, meaning, of course, from the heart of the Church.
Right.
So a powerful document. Yeah. Now, over brunch, you were saying something about extending Newman into another part of the state. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Adorers have this concept of our dear neighbor, and you can say more about that if you want.
This comes from our foundress, who always talked about the beautiful order of things and how every person was worth the blood of Christ.
Right.
And everyone is our dear neighbor. And we always have to think about our dear neighbor, which could even be the sister beside me or people far away.
Sure.
But we always have to have the heart for the dear neighbor, because they're Christ among us.
And so you're down now in,
we
said
are working
western?
In southwestern Kansas, which is primarily in Dodge City and Garden City and Liberal. And these are three communities which have community college, so you can get a 2-year college degree, but that's the furthest you can go in that location. So there was once a Catholic university in southwest Kansas. It closed in the 90s, and we took over the education program out there so that there could still be teachers. Good. And so for a long time we've been training people to be teachers in this area, but the areas are actually growing, and they need workers in other areas like in agriculture and business and all kinds of nursing. So we've partnered with the junior colleges to offer bachelor's degrees in person in these 3 different locations in southwest Kansas. They are strongly immigrant communities, not entirely, but they are growing because of immigration. And there's a lot of agricultural business in the area, and so we've offered degrees like agribusiness technology and
Didn't you say you're the only Catholic university offering an ag degree, agriculture?
Yes, as far as we know.
So see, you're doing what the Pope mentioned just yesterday, what Newman has talked about, and it's all about transforming society. Mm-hmm. All it takes is the one individual,
right,
and then the one becomes many, and society is transformed. So,
and you look for the openings where your dear neighbor needs some help, and so you fill those gaps rather than trying to replicate what other people or other colleges are already doing. So we have a wonderful partnership with Southwest Kansas, and I expect that will continue to grow for some time.
Well, Kathleen, I want to thank you, and then Sister Maria, the added joy to today, for in the midst of a very short period in Rome, certainly for you, Kathleen, to spend some time with me. And as I said at the opening, we probably could have gone on forever. We know we could because we did over lunch. But I want to thank you so much for your time. And I should have also said halfway through this that if you just joined us, folks, you have been listening to my special guest today, and that's Kathleeen Jagger, and she is the president of Newman University in Wichita, Kansas. So, Kathleen, I just want to thank you for your time, your brilliant insight today. I know you've encouraged a lot of people in education, those who will be listening to you. And Sister Maria of the Odors of the Precious Blood, we will meet again. You're in Rome.
Yes, we will. You can come visit us.
Yes. Well,
thank you so much for having us today, and the joy of talking about John Henry Newman and how he embodies the Catholic intellectual tradition that we all seek to learn more about.
Well, you've inspired me, and I know many of our listeners, and you can send me a line, will be inspired by what they've learned about your university, about being a doctor of the church, about Catholic education. All of it is very much needed, because if we know only one thing right now, it's society does have to be transformed. Call on Christ and say, help us bring society back to you.
Right. Yeah. And each of us has a special role to play in that transformation.
Sure.
And I love what Newman said. I'll paraphrase him on the exact words, but God put me on this earth for some purpose, and I may not know what it is now, but I will find out when I get to heaven if I really did.
Oh, did I do the right thing?
Yeah. You know, if I really did what he was expected. Yeah. So, I mean, I think he just believes in that beauty of everyone having their unique value. And love that. But thank you for having us, and if anybody would like to learn more about Newman, they can go to
I'll put the link up to the university.
Yeah.
Well, safe travels, and
thank you so much.
You have little time left, but you certainly have made it valuable.
We'll connect.
For more information on these stories, or to check out Joan's blog and to ask her a question, go to EWTN.com. That's EWTN.com. Thanks for listening to Vatican Insider on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.